Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the second update 1.101 dev server, and it's time to have a look at a new plane which is coming to the Germans. It is a familiar face, definitely. This is the IL-28, and you can find it in two separate trees already. So you can find it in the aviation tree for the Soviets, right here, and you can also find it in the Chinese tech tree under the name H5. So what is different about this one compared to the Soviet one? Nothing. It is exactly the same vehicle. It has the Klimov VK1 engines with a 2680 kgf. It has enough fuel to power a small city, and also it has the same guns. It has a turret with dual 23mm NR23s, incredibly good little guns, and then also you have an offensive weaponry set of two NR23s as well. You got your gunner and then your pilot, and that's really about it when it comes to the X-ray. Armor wise, this thing is actually pretty well armored, which is really cool. Something, if you didn't know, the turret on the back of this is incredibly well armored, so actually going up against it can be pretty hard to do, because the tail gunner can eat a lot of shells compared to normal. The bulletproof glass is 102mm, which is why when you shoot the back of IL-28 and they don't die, like the gunner doesn't die instantly, it's basically because of this. You know, it's might be something you're not used to. Then on the sides, 68mm of bulletproof glass. This guy in the back might be the most heavily armored guy in War Thunder when it comes to planes. Then the actual structure around the turret itself is 8mm. In the front, you have a 10mm plate on the bottom where the gunner is at the front, or the bombardier. Then you have 6mm and 10mm and 32mm to try and keep him alive, and also keep the pilot alive, who has 10mm behind him and also 6mm seat. The secondary armaments for this machine are exactly the same as the Soviet one once again. So you have a 1500 kilo bomb, you have 12 100s, 8 250s, 4 500s, and a big old 3000. All of these fit, I believe, in the bomb bay, so you never actually see them, which is kind of cool, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so you can drop them as you wish instead of having them on hard points. So overall, the IL-28, you know, that we see here is exactly the same as the Soviet one. The only difference is, being in the German tree, it finds itself after the Arados. It's sat itself at 8.0. It is a rank 5, so it can research rank 4, 5, and 6 efficiently, and I'm sure will be a good jet grinder if people want it to be. So let's get into some test flights and mission editor and kind of talk about it, because this plane does bring up some interesting ideas, you know, that I think, you know, we need to have a chat about. Obviously there's going to be a lot of people who look at this and think, well, you know, it's just another bomber, or it's just another plane which is copy and paste. And that is completely true. And we have to, as individuals, work out when is it okay to have a situation where you have a copy and paste vehicle, and when is it not okay. So when I talk about this, I generally mean, is it okay to have a copy and paste when the tree needs it? You know, when you need to fulfill a lineup? Is it okay to have a vehicle like this to be able to, you know, fill out, let's say, an 8.0 lineup? Maybe is it, since the country never really had anything or built anything around that time, is it okay to kind of fill that thing full of something or other? And that's basically what we have with the IL-28. At the end of the day, the AA is incredibly aggressive. The one thing we have to understand about the Germans post-World War II is it was split off into two areas. Obviously East Germany and West Germany. A lot of people only think about West Germany, since it was the dominant part, it was the larger part, and also at the same time, a lot of the technology when it comes to stuff like Leopards or stuff like indigenous German designs actually happened there. Whereas in East Germany, a lot of the stuff that they use, such as T-72s, BMPs, IL-28s, and so forth, were of Soviet design. So therefore, it was never seen as an idea that, you know, it would be, it's not that interesting to people, you know, compared to the western side, which had all of this development. Now, the eastern side did have a little bit of development, but at the same time, it's still part of Germany. It's still part of, you know, what we see as Germany. It would be like if you wanted to take the Soviet Union, or as it's known in the game, the USSR, and split it into the Soviet Union and then Russia as a separate tree. It just wouldn't really work very well. Why not have them complement each other? Whereas, you know, they did use these vehicles. It wasn't as if we're just plonking vehicles randomly all over the place. Why not, when there is a gap in a tech tree, why not add one of these vehicles so you actually have proper job lineups? It is historical. Yes, it is copy and paste. Yes, you know, it is kind of annoying, I suppose, for some people to grind out the same vehicle. But if you know anything about the IL-28s, you'll understand that they are actually pretty, you know, fun vehicles to use, because you can just turn your brain off in something like Aerialistic and just go and grind with them. And something that Germany has missed for a long time, after, you know, if you've spaded the Arados, is something that makes it easy to grind stuff like jets. If you want to turn your brain off and, you know, play the game and get good RP towards jets, the best thing to do is to take out something like an Arado and just go base bomb for a while. And especially with the changes to a lot of maps, that is, you know, definitely something to do. And now the IL-28 gives you another option where you're able to do that. So even though it isn't something like the IL-28 SH, which has all the rockets, has all the secondaries, which makes it really interesting, it gives people an option in the tech tree to use, whether it is they want to run it with, let's say, an 8.0 lineup when it comes to ground, or an 8.3 lineup, because obviously at 8.7, well, you just bring the G91YS, don't you? But at 8.0 or 8.3, there isn't really a great option for CAS for Germany. So this, with its 3,000 kilo, just gives another option to be able to bring it along. And also, as I said, it gives people a way to be able to grind to the higher tier jets that they want to play. And we already have stuff like the MiGs in the German tree. We all knew a few years ago, even with stuff like the Canadair Sabre, that this was eventually going to happen to Germany, where they would have to, you know, have a few copy and paste vehicles to basically fill out what's going on. You know, it was the same with Japan. Obviously China is the extreme example in this case, which a lot of people aren't happy with. And generally from, you know, my travels, when it comes to looking at people's service records and reviewing them on stuff such as the stream, yes, it's true. The majority of people don't really play China, probably because it's copy and paste nature, and also because you can just have those experiences in other trees. But when it comes to Germany, a ton of people play Germany. A ton of people play a lot of the German vehicles, which are unique. A ton of people play even the other vehicles. So to put another vehicle in the tree, which makes it easier to grind through the tree to get to those higher vehicles, I'm completely fine with, you know. Not everything has to be a meta fighter jet. Some things can just be simple ground pounders. Some things can just be turn your brain off machines to be used to get the RP required to get that jet that you want. And the Arados have been that for a long time. You know, take off, well, not even take off, spawn in the air, hit a base, go back to the airfield, do the same thing over and over again. And then in ground realistic, kind of do the same, but with a tank. And then also, you know, try and fight an enemy jet at a good click and have, let's just say, a few issues with it. I don't see why the IL-28 cannot just fulfill that role, but at a slightly higher BR for Germany. Even though there are going to be people who aren't going to play this, and at the end of the day, they don't have to. You know, you can just go down the fighter lines. You can play the unique, iconic German vehicles, the Me-262s, the Me-163, which has now just been moved in the tech tree. Stuff like the HE-162, if you have a Death Wish, or stuff like the Canadair Sabres, which are very fun, or even, you know, the MiG-21s and all of that jazz. There's a lot of stuff, like, people can play if they want to. And I think in order to be efficient at grinding, or in order to have something in ground which is more useful than something like an Arado, I think is completely fine for Germany to have. I know there's going to be a lot of people who are wondering why, I made a video on this vehicle, since it is just, one which we already have in game. And I hope I've laid this out pretty well in this video. Sometimes it's okay to have vehicles like this. Sometimes it's fine to have copy and paste, especially when the nations used it, and it fills a hole. The main issue with copy and paste is when it takes over whole tech trees and gives you exactly the same experiences you get from other nations. Whereas with this IL-28, you can now mix it with other stuff from Germany to give you even more unique experiences. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Battling Bacon, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Conte Baraka, Daniel Stanton, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, Trigger Hippie, Universe, Eugens Terry, and also I'm Devilish and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.